Hello and welcome back to another lesson of Logos and Letters. My name is Liam. Let's continue on. So we've had a look at how truth and falsity are very much related and connected to the time and the matter. So through time, things will change. What's a good example of that? So I have some artworks I think that will serve that purpose. So you can say here, that, things are, you can say that there is no stone buildings, there is no stone architecture, things of that nature, right? And it's true. But across time, things will change because time allows for change. Time is the measurement of change. And so as time marches on, change occurs, and now we have stone buildings, right? This is some stone temple. It looks like they're in the middle of a kind of sacrifice, a holocaust, a full, complete burning of something to appease whatever gods. So they've built themselves a stone building, and now if the same statement were to be made again at this time, things would be false. This would be false. True at this time, things change, and now it is false. Okay, so here you can maybe change the opinion and say, there is no, what's something starkly different than the next painting, next picture. You could say that there is no marble constructions. There are no marble buildings here. It's all just plain stone, quarried from nearby sources. So you say that, and it is true. There's no marble buildings anywhere. None of the stone here is marble. And then time marches on, and the pragma changes, the affair, the matter. And that statement would then be false to make. All right, so you can see how truth and falsity are very much connected to time and to the matter, because the matter moves, the affairs move, they change, right? We looked at tu kinomenu, right? This word that appeared in the script, and that's what he's speaking about. And that's why he brought up the idea that things continue, right? Does it persist to be so? Diamenai. You have to ask yourself, is it still the case? Because if it still is the case, then that statement, that opinion is true. It's still true. It still reflects reality as it is. But if time has marched on enough for the change to occur, then it is false. You can say here, there is peace, there is joy, okay? And those opinions, those statements are true, okay? But then change occurs, all right, owing to time advancing, and the change alters the state of the affairs. And once the state of the affairs have changed enough that that statement no longer represents reality as it is, then it would be false to still hold to that claim. If you still hold to that claim, it is false. But if you say there was peace and joy, then that's perfectly fine. You need to change the tense of the verb. Why? Because the tense of the verb is going to help you to connect, to reference that particular time, how the affairs were, right? So you can see the passage of time allows for the change to occur, and for the change is in relation to the state of affairs. And that pretty much sums it up. And that's key to the analysis of truth and truth claims, or when someone wants to prove something is false. So, and eventually time will continue on enough that even more drastic changes occur. right? But it seems to be the market nature of things that all things move and all things change. But more on that later. Let's continue on with the text. So here, ala toi peri heteron tito pathos gegenestai. That wraps it up. The suffering, the change has occurred. So why has it occurred? Because of all the things that we've just spoken about. Toigar to pragma ainai e me ainai. Tu toi kai ho logos alethes e pseudes ainai legadai. So we speak of truth and falsity in relation to a statement, a proposition, or a opinion, insofar as it either is so or isn't so, but also we do not say that it is a receptacle of contraries. We don't say that a statement receives the contraries of truth and falsity. It is not a substance that does so, for all the reasons that we've discussed so far over the last few lessons. But continuing on, we hear haploskar uthen hup udenos ute ho logos kinaitai ute he doxa. So kinaitai, he's refreshing us about the movement. All right. So neither nor uta the proposition has moved or the opinion. All right. Hosta ukan ye dektika ton enantion medenos en autois ginomenu pathus. Right. So in neither of them has any change come about. Pathus ginomenu. In neither of them has any change come about. And what is he speaking about? What's neither? He's speaking about the logos, right? The and the doxa, right? So that is very neat. Let me change that. Let me fix that right up. So there's no change that happens in your opinion or statement, really. Like what I said in the last lesson, it's locked in time, and the artwork perfectly reflects that. If we go back to the artwork, it's locked in time. You say there's no civilization here, right? That you say there is no stone building here, and that is perfectly reflective of the situation. Your statement is locked in time to that time and place and that state of affairs, okay? And only referencing that. So if you made that statement in the past, no one can come up to you and say, oh, you're a liar. You said that there's no stone building. And look, there is a stone building. Because you said that in the past. And this is now not the past. The present is never the past, okay? So he can't, or she can't, or they can't call you a liar. And you can explain that to them by saying, hey, I referenced that to the past when the state of affairs were different, and my statement, my opinion, perfectly captured what the reality was at the time. And they will have to accept that. And this goes and applies to really important statements, such as, I've got an artwork here for it. You can say, Christ has died, right? Christ is dead, all right? And that's true at one time. But then you can also say that Christ has risen. Now, I'm sure I've got an artwork here about the resurrection. Where could it be? All right. Maybe I don't have an artwork of the resurrection, which would surprise me. Here we go. Okay, so you can say Christ is alive. So how can it be true and false for a statement to say that Christ is alive and Christ is dead? It sounds like either one or needs to be the case. But if we consider everything we have just learnt over the last few lessons, each of those statements are referencing a time and a state of affairs. And if they reference if they say, if they capture the reality of the situation as it was at that time, okay, then that's true. If it doesn't, that's false. So if on Friday night, Jesus of Nazareth is dead, okay, he's in the tomb with the various spices and embalming sort of materials that, well, not embalming, but preserving sort of materials that are used in the rituals at that time, and in this empty, brand new tomb, then so be it. But then time moves on, and now it is, Sunday. Okay, it's been 3 full days since he died. It's been 72 hours, and you're a disciple, and it's late on Sunday, and you hear someone say, Jesus is alive. Because it is a different time and change has occurred, it is possible for this to be true or false. Now, if Jesus is alive, then it's true. And if he's not alive, then it's false. It's not mutually exclusive that someone can say the contrary thing in the past and the other contrary cannot exist in some distant time. Okay, that's obvious. So that is why we can say, a disciple can say Jesus is dead, and then another time say that he is alive, and both can be true. All right, they're not mutually exclusive. Time permits change. The change occurs in the matter, the affair, and from this, that is how we analyze whether something is true or false. Does it reflect the situation as it was when it was referenced? Does it still hold true? Does it persist, right? He's got this key word here, diamenai. Does it continue? Or has it moved? Kinomenu. Has the affair moved? And why would it have moved? Because of time, right? Now, eternal things that are outside of time, obviously don't apply to everything that we've just said. But let us continue on. Hostuukaan hie dektika, tonenantion meedenosenautois kinomenu pathos, right? Heidege uusia, toiaute, ta enantia dekestai, tuutoi, dektike, tonenantion ainai legetai. All right, we'll finish here. This is the end of the lesson. This point right here. All right. Actually, it gives an example here, so we might end it here. So, nosongar kai hugayan deketai kai lukoteeta kai melanian. These should seem familiar to you. Whiteness, blackness, health, illness. All right. These words should seem familiar because he's used them so much in other examples. Let's explore what this means, what this section here means, okay? And this will wrap up the lesson really quick. So, deketai, receiving, having received, right? We see this word all the time. He's talking about receiving contraries, right? We should be familiar with that idea. We know that it is most unique to substance that it receives contraries, okay? And now he's bringing it back up in relation to hologos in heidoxe. All right, so, and he's saying that substance receives them, and he also brings up the idea that it's the one and the same substance. So, one and the same person can go from being cold to hot, from being small to big. All right, we've covered that. Good. But let's consider one and the same statement now. One and the same statement can be true at one time and false at another. And that's why it seems similar. But it's not receiving the contrary because it's A, not a substance. It's not a substantial thing. But B, because when we consider how statements come about. So one person is fixed through time. But you can have two of the same statements. You can have on day one, you can have X. You can say X. Day two, all right, day 2, you can say X. These are two statements, two of the exact same statements said on different days. But notice the key here is that there are two of them. It's not one in the same statement. And on day 1, it is correct. On day 2, it is false. So there's 2, they multiply, they don't stay 1 in number. And on one day, they can be true, and one day they can be false. So substance is the same throughout all of time, right? Substance is just one. Whereas statements and opinions seem to multiply. You can have many of the same opinion about different things. You might think to yourself, I think dogs are better than cats. You think that dogs are far superior than cats, and you think that to yourself several times, and you make that statement to other people several times, and you're multiplying this statement. And it might be different each time. You might say, I think dogs are better than cats. I think dogs are way better than cats. Okay, so statements are not one in number in that sense. You can make a statement, which is one in number, of course, and then that's locked to a particular event, as I've mentioned here. And then you can make it again, right, on another day. And they're identical statements, but they're in reference to two different times, or possibly two different affairs, right? So statements do not share that with substance, that they persist being individual, one in number through all of time. And that's another really slight nuance about it. So they don't receive contraries, right? They just reflect, they just aim for truth and falsity. We'll leave that there for now. So the final point to reflect on is that the change comes about through the passage of time, and the time change of the event, and the fact of the matter altering because of the time and change. So there's no, otherwise we would be on the road to fatalism, right? That's one of the key issues here that we're trying to avoid. Eventually you could build up to the idea that everything is fixed in fate and we have no free will. That's one of the reasons why I'm going over this so thoroughly, because I don't want people to think eventually, we'll get to it in time, but I don't want people to come to the idea that logic suggests that once a statement is made, it's fixed, or the fate has already been decided. And if you're confused about why that might be raised right now, don't worry. We'll not too long into the future, we'll get to it. But there is a prevailing idea that if you say, tomorrow will be sunny, all right, it's either true or false, obviously. But it seems like that fate is already sealed, okay, because it has to be true or false. So we'll explore this idea and this problem, this riddle of, is the future fixed? Is fate sealed, and there's no free will, and there's nothing we can do to alter the future? And it all relates to propositions and opinions, what we're learning here. But we will deal with that in due time. So the next lesson, we'll wrap up chapter 5 in total and start with chapter 6, okay, about quantity. But I do want to congratulate anyone who's been watching these lessons on reaching the end of substance, okay, chapter 5, substance. It is very dense, very abstract, and speaks about many topics which aren't common in everyday conversations or in common media. All right, you don't really see these sorts of conversations play out in politics or even movies and whatnot. So if you've gotten to the end of this and you've got a good understanding on how time and affects truth and falsity, and how things have primary substances and secondary substances and qualities and accidents, then I want to congratulate you, because that is a fantastic effort. You've achieved something very special. And if you've learnt Greek along the way, immensely impressive. I mean, some people may not have set out with the intention of learning any Greek. And if that's the case, that's fair enough. That's reasonable, because it's hard enough to learn and to feel confident with these new ideas in English, let alone with the Greek element added into it. But as you'll quickly come to realize, I hope, that it is a very rewarding experience, a very useful experience. And if you're a philosophy or theology enthusiast or student, or it's required for your job, I think already you may have seen how these ideas are quite useful. I explore more complicated ideas in the book that's referenced, especially with these ideas. The resurrection, of course, is a topic you can explore, but I invite people to explore ideas of something being one in the same substance as another. So you may have heard, if you're not a Christian, you may have heard that people, Christians, some types of Christians, say that Jesus and God are the one and same substance, consubstantial. So you can explore that topic fully and completely just with chapter 5. Okay, chapter 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 in this book is all you need to fully come to those conclusions and figure out why they say that, how they say that. And other topics as well can be explored with this. But in these video forms, I try to keep it as conversational and, like I said at the very start, almost like a one-on-one tutorial or small group tutorial, so that you have access to complicated analysis in one part, the written form, where it's easy to follow, and in the spoken form, something less high level, something more moderate, because it's harder to follow arguments and logic when listening, especially when looking at artwork too. It can be distracting. I know that. It can be very helpful at times as well. It's a double-edged sword. But yeah, so I hope it's felt right at that moderate level, these explanations. I'm still working on my teaching style and method, and still getting used to speaking essentially to myself in a room, whereas all my other teaching experiences are in front of a class, ranging from different sizes, of course, but where I've got instant feedback and cues and hints that I can go off, and an energy in the classroom that I can read. And also the fact that students don't ask me questions when I'm speaking during this is quite odd too. I know that sounds weird. That might sound like a good thing, but when the students ask me a question about a particular topic that I'm speaking about, I know exactly what I haven't covered well enough. But when you compare that to this, where no student has asked me a question, I don't have that ability to recognize what I haven't covered well enough. And so you're sort of hounded by the idea that nothing you have explained has been explained well enough. And I guess that's sort of a learning curve of this type of teaching. If you've done something similar to what I'm doing already, I would love to hear your experience with that progress, and I might take something away from that. I think just throughout time, and like what related to, time will help the change to occur. And the fact of the matter that I feel quite rigid, quite stiff when teaching in this style compared to in front of a dynamic classroom with many sets of eyes looking on me, and posture and body and all these other things giving me feedback. The time will bring about the change, and I will sort of overcome or pass through one state to the next, and I'll go from feeling artificial and it'll be true to claim, eventually, it'll be true to claim that I feel completely normal and adjusted and accustomed to teaching this way. So it's my own personal anecdote to support the examples that we've already looked at. And yeah, thank you for your time. Si semper fortis in opere tuo. My name is Liam, and thank you for watching.